Hey guys, this is going to be the start of me utilizing YouTube to actually do some individual videos to talk about thoughts that I have throughout the week, throughout the course of the month when it comes to the current product, either the WWE or AEW. If I have a thought and I want to talk about it, I'm going to do a little video about it. I'm not going to wait until the dirty sheets at the end of the week, and I'm not going to try and shoehorn it into the Wrestling Informer. So in relation to that, obviously the dirty sheets over the past 5-6 years has been done with a co-host, either Nick or with Cav, who came after Nick. But Cav doesn't really have any interest in doing the dirty sheets. Every single week on a weekly basis, it's like getting blood out of a stone. And now with YouTube and with us creating subscribers, there's actually quite a lot of money coming in to the show. But I'm not going to be sharing that money with someone who has no interest in doing the show, gives me very, very small time slots where he wants to record the show and wants to finish it in his lunch break so he can carry on and get back to work. That doesn't inspire me to create wrestling content. Already at times it's difficult to do wrestling content because as good as the product is at times, and as good as it definitely has been during periods, especially in the last 18 to 24 months, it's still not what it was. And when you have a busy life and the vast majority of your income comes from doing other content, it doesn't inspire you to do it. You need to enjoy doing it, and I don't really enjoy doing it with someone who sucks the life out of it and doesn't want to do it. And that's not a falling out with Cav. I can easily hang out with Cav, have a phone call with Cav, talk about anything other than wrestling with Cav. But if he doesn't have an interest in wrestling, it's very difficult to do content with him, and it feels forced. I don't want somebody to feel like they're doing me a favor. I don't need favors from anybody. If you don't want to sit here and speak to me, then don't. Then go and do your other show. But the fact is, and it's a shame, that he has prioritized doing a show for Joe Feeney for less money and is working with someone that I don't like and who made things for me very difficult at K100. Really did shit stir in that situation. And when the opportunity came for Cav to make some money, or the opportunity to make money from doing this, he decided to go and work with Joe, which I don't think is a very loyal thing to do, given that over half of your listeners come from being on the day sheets. Nobody would know about the WrestleLingus show. At least most 75% of people wouldn't know about it unless he was on the show. So as I said, there's no falling out. I'm just tired of forcing the issue. Cav always says most people only listen or watch to see what I have to say anyway, so we'll put that to the test. So I'm going to be doing these shorts, and I'm going to be doing the dirty sheets every week, and that's going to be a live Q&A show. So I want to nail down a time for that, and I will do that in due course. So I'm not going to do it this week because we just have too much to do. I'm going to be releasing a free Clash preview, and Clash at the Castle preview, and that's going to be on the Lock Betting podcast feed. So it's going to be on the Lock Betting podcast feed. Just search Lock Betting wherever you get your podcast. That's where you're going to find the Clash of the Castle. I'm also going to be doing a Clash of the Castle betting preview. That's also where I'm going to be. So on the dirty sheets is where I'm going to be doing the dirty sheets is where I'm going to be doing the Wrestling Informer. You're going to get half the show for free, and then the other half you're going to have to subscribe to. And then from next Friday, the following Friday, I will begin my Q&A session. So try to tune in live. Try to follow the Twitter account to see when that will be. That's at Dirty Sheets X. That is currently genuinely run by Cav. I don't log into that at all, but obviously I may need to retrieve the account if Cav isn't going to be appearing on the show, which he isn't going to be in the near future. So what I want to talk about today is what I feel is a missed opportunity for AEW, because the WWE were absolutely on fire going into WrestleMania 40, with obviously The Rock being on television, Cody chasing the belt, and multiple other storylines around that. Everything was on fire. The champions going in were hot. Obviously, Roman Reigns was the hottest champion in all of wrestling, the hottest champion we've had for decades, if not of all time. There is an argument, and we made the argument here on the show, that Roman Reigns is the greatest WWE champion of all time, if not definitely in the top three. So it's very, very hard when you have somebody who's in the top 2-3 champions of all time to compare any other runs to it. But around that, we had Rhea Ripley having a hell of a run, Logan Paul having a good US title run, Gunther having a record-breaking tag team title run. Judgment Day had one set of tag belts. Sorry, they were the unified belts. They had those unified belts going in. So all across the board, we had credible champions going into WrestleMania, either on long runs, or I mean, they have the combination of being on long runs and also being formidable champions that if they got beaten, it would be a big deal. Now, whilst it was gratifying for people, obviously those who attended WrestleMania 40 and those who watched it on TV, to see these title switches. Obviously, Rhea Ripley's wasn't a title switch that occurred at WrestleMania. She ended up losing the belt very underwhelmingly by having to give it up. And then Becky Lynch won the Battle Royal, and then Liv Morgan is now the champion. But while it was gratifying for Bayley to win the title and for Gunther's run to end and for us to see the tag team titles split up and of course Cody Rhodes finishing the story, what it left us with coming out of WrestleMania was a load of new champions who had to establish themselves. And I honestly don't feel, and this includes Cody Rhodes, that any of these champions have established themselves to the point where they have the same level of credibility as the previous champion. I mean, for Cody, it was hard, but it doesn't help that he didn't really have any major storyline going in with Logan Paul. He didn't have any major storyline going in with AJ Styles. And now he has a story with AJ. But the fact is, nobody really believes that AJ is going to win the championship. And that is something that's going to handcuff Cody for a while. Because the champion who comes after Roman's had such a long reign, you know that because that was such a big moment in terms of choosing who that person was, he too subsequently has to have a long title reign. Therefore, he suffers from a lack of believability when he has challenges. Roman suffered from that too. By the time Roman got past the 18-month mark, when we saw Roman Reigns successfully defend it against Edge and Daniel Bryan, that was the first time where we were like, wow, this is legit. He's rode the wave. He's got past WrestleMania. Then we saw him unify the titles at WrestleMania 38 when he beat Brock Lesnar. We knew that wasn't going to be a B pay-per-view title change. We knew that wasn't going to be a Saudi title change. We knew that wasn't going to be a SummerSlam title change. We knew that we were going all the way to WrestleMania 39. And then even then, obviously, we know that Cody didn't finish the story at WrestleMania 39. So we suffered from some of that, where I believe every contender that came along after Brock wasn't going to be a viable contender who could legitimately beat Roman Reigns. And I went to and traveled to a lot of these matches where Roman Reigns was defending the title. Even Drew McIntyre in the UK, I genuinely didn't believe he could win. Maybe some people did. I'm speaking from my own perspective. And that was something that Roman Reigns' title reign suffered with. But the difference is that we created compelling stories on the side. Now, obviously, Cody's title reign is in its infancy, so we can't really judge it too harshly. But at the moment, we're not creating compelling stories on the side. We had the entire bloodline thing. Roman was able to walk away from television, come back. We had the situation with Sami Zayn wanting to be in the bloodline. That carried things for a while. Then when Sami left, That also carried things for a while because obviously you had KO trying to get revenge for him. You then set up a program with Sami and the Usos. You then had the Usos leaving the group. So it was just story after story after story. Whilst never really believing that any of these people were viable in terms of taking the belt from Roman, we still had great storylines to set up the next contenders. We've done the first really great thing with Cody in terms of the AJ turn, which was the retirement, the babyface turn / retirement / him turning back to heel. So it was all done within one night. But it was copying what Mark Henry did. So we are now recycling things that were probably done better in the past, because the first time's always going to be the best. Not that AJ didn't pull it off well. My son hasn't seen the Mark Henry thing, so he felt like the AJ thing was very good. For me, it was good, yes, but I've seen it before, so didn't quite hit the same way as when Mark Henry did it. And also, I saw it coming a mile off when they were building up towards it as well. But I don't think Cody's the one that you give the harshest judgment to. But all of the new champions coming out of WrestleMania, you would argue, are weak. Bayley's run has been atrocious. I cannot think of a champion who is less significant than Bayley. Liv Morgan is now the champion, but immediately she's involved in a storyline with Dominic, which doesn't revolve around defending a belt. We haven't established a new contender. And I don't necessarily mind that, because I'm a very storyline orientated person. So I have no problem with the fact that you are kind of putting one belt to the back burner and saying that we're going to focus on a storyline here, because we do need storylines. And the fact that they're going down this route where it's somewhat of a sexualized storyline, I do feel that's something that's missing from wrestling. It's something that's been taboo, where it's been a case of all women must wrestle. Well, Liv Morgan's hot as fuck. Like, if anybody's going to do this storyline, it's going to be Liv Morgan. And you would even argue that it appeared, when you look at TV, we mentioned Mark Henry earlier. Mark Henry claimed to be the world's strongest man. Well, I think the world's strongest man might actually be Dominic Mysterio, because if he's turning down Liv Morgan and he's not going into hotel rooms, then he's definitely the world's strongest man, because he has the world's strongest willpower. So that in itself is a separate issue. But I think Liv Morgan, you could kind of say, is exempt. But when you're looking at Bayley, when you're looking at A-Town Down, when you're looking at The Miz and Truth, when you're looking at Damian Priest, these have all been very underwhelming, if not awful, champions. They have significantly weakened the belts. And I didn't think Seth Rollins was a strong champion when he was champion, and I was dying for somebody else to win it. But Damian Priest ain't that guy. And I don't know what we're doing with the championship at the moment. I genuinely don't. And I haven't asked, because I do want to be surprised when it comes to some things, because I'm still a fan. And whilst I do this job and I do need to give out news on Wrestling Informer, on some instances, I think it's okay. With my record of getting so many things right and delivering so much of the breaking news, I mean, you can just see with the contracts that are being signed at the moment, most of this information was given out ages ago on the Informer, and especially with the results, like our betting record on wrestling is second to none. So if there's a match where I don't want to know the result, and in particular this weekend it's McIntyre and Priest, I've abstained from asking. But if it goes in a direction that I think it will go into, which would be CM Punk turning up in Scotland and costing Drew the belt, then you're heading towards a very underwhelming SummerSlam match between Priest and Gunther, where Gunther will get the belt. And a Gunther run doesn't interest me either. If it goes in a direction of Drew somehow winning this match, that's going to be short-lived as well, because we know Gunther is awaiting the champion at SummerSlam, because he's the king of the ring. So you know that CM Punk and Drew McIntyre is happening at SummerSlam, and it won't be for the championship. So if Drew McIntyre wins it in Scotland, he's very quickly going to lose it to someone else, which makes Priest's run look even worse. So that title is in a very poor place. I've already mentioned how poor Bailey has been as champion. The tag team belts are non-existent. They both seem like comedy belts. We've seemingly have two very unserious comedy acts holding the belt. And I have no problem with comedy acts, but it's the fact that all of these belts have been significantly weakened. It's difficult to point to a champion and say they are strong champions. I think Logan Paul has been a good champion, but he's not defending the US belt since WrestleMania. And even that match he had with Cody, he made sure that he got away with not defending the US belt, which means the US belt hasn't now been defended since April. So you can't really say that belt has solidified or that Logan Paul has solidified that belt or strengthened its status whilst not defending it at all since WrestleMania, where he had a good match, a good title defense against two very credible opponents. So the belts are weak. The shows are weak. The main thing that we have over on SmackDown is the addition of the Bloodline, with the change of the Bloodline, which is great because of the way Heyman carries it. The Heyman Solo interaction, it is encouraging. We want Roman chants, but the one issue I have with it is that they're bringing in these guys and they're saying that they are savages. These savages are coming in. These guys are so savage, but their matches are not savage at all. When you want to see a savage, have a look over on Raw, where Bron Breakker, who's being booked very well, is one of the highlights on Raw, he's legitimately being booked as a savage. These guys, they go into the ring, they do the old Samoan offense with the chops and the kicks, and it's very, very basic. But there's nothing savage about it. There's nothing in terms of their in-ring that says, wow, these guys are savages, these guys are brutal. So all the taglines, all the nicknames, all of the hyperbole doesn't correlate to what we're seeing in the ring. So there's kind of a little bit of a disconnect there with the new Bloodline. Elsewhere, when you're looking at things on SmackDown, it really is just a lot of pointless matches. I'm underwhelmed somewhat with the combination of Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. As I said, I'm underwhelmed with all of the champions. I think Bron Breakker's been the best thing over on Raw. I think the show significantly misses CM Punk not being on there on Raw. Obviously, Raw lost Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is over on SmackDown, where he doesn't have credible opponents. And overall, it does miss Roman. Now, it wasn't realistic to think that the show was going to maintain where it was when we had The Rock there. We knew we were seeing cinema. We knew we were seeing grade A theatre. We knew that we were watching the best stuff we were going to see on TV this year. We knew that. But I think the way it has gone down, or the level it's dropped to, was significantly lower than I expected it to. And whilst TKO and the board were very, very high on anointing Paul Levesque and saying this was the Paul Levesque era and Paul Levesque's WWE, and that was all shoved down our throats at WrestleMania, I think we're getting a more realistic look at it now, and Paul Levesque isn't this magician. Paul Levesque cannot wave a magic wand and suddenly make 3 hours of Raw compelling. It is still a lot of matches that don't need to be there. Still a lot of long matches that aren't particularly interesting at times, and also not been really overwhelmed by the pay-per-view. The card this weekend is poor. It's poor to the extent where I'm considering not going. I've not made my decision at this point in time. I wasn't really thrilled with King and Queen of the Ring. I felt like, again, the matches are great. Individually, when you watch an individual match from these pay-per-view, you could say that's a good match, that's a good match, that's a good match. But good match after good match after good match where everybody kicks out on 2.75, and we've seen it over and over again, doesn't really work on a pay-per-view. You do need a talking segment. You do need a Bill Goldberg going out there or a Bill Goldberg type character going out there and squashing somebody in a 3-minute match. You need that variety on the show. 5 good matches, as weird as it sounds, doesn't really work on a pay-per-view. I don't find it interesting. I don't find it interesting to sit through 5 25-minute matches. I don't know about you, but that's not why I watch wrestling. So with the lack of surprises, the lack of segments, the lack of variety on these pay-per-views, I've not found the PLEs interesting since WrestleMania, with the exception of Leon, with the unique element being the crowd. The crowd obviously made that pay-per-view. We've not seen anything like that before. Obviously, if we continue to do European pay-per-views or going to places with that kind of crowd reaction, then this weekend will be interesting because Scotland can be quite rowdy. It'll be interesting to see if that kind of gets watered down, if people's feelings are like, yeah, we've seen it. I've even heard people saying they were sick of the Leon crowd by the end. So with that being said, with the Paul Levesque era not quite hitting how people expected to when they anointed him King Booker after a very successful WrestleMania season and a very, very good WrestleMania, very close to, well, actually it is in a conversation, undoubtedly with WrestleMania 17, and close to some people saying it's number one. It's definitely between the two. I think there's no question about it. WrestleMania 40 or WrestleMania 17 will be people's number one WrestleMania now. That's how good it was. And the build-up was a large part of that. Now reality has set in. And with that reality setting in, there was an opportunity for AEW to do something on the other side, I believe. And booking the diet version, the midget version of the NWO, the personality vacuum version of the NWO, was not the answer to it with the Young Bucks and Okada and Jack Perry. That was not the answer. Doing more long matches on the show was not the answer. But it seems like, obviously, when you watch Dynamite and you watch Raw, it's kind of the same show with these long matches that you don't really need to be on there. With AEW, though, it seems to be even worse. They seem to advertise absolute crap. Like with the Blackpool Combat Club last week going up against 4 jobbers, you didn't need to advertise that. That's not going to get anybody to watch the show. In fact, that's going to make people think that they can miss the show. So for me, it was a massive missed opportunity. Whilst AEW rightfully got their asses kicked during WrestleMania, and we knew what the superior product undoubtedly was. And WWE is going to be the superior product anyway, because all it needs is for them to break the Roman Reigns glass, or chuck out Cena, or put The Rock on television, or create like a compelling challenger for Cody Rhodes, which I'm sure they're saving. I'm sure at SummerSlam they will find a way for Solo Sikoa to say that he's going to be, now it was time for Solo Sikoa and the Bloodline to bring the belt back home, which will be compelling television. And WWE know that they can push these buttons. But whilst they're not pushing these buttons, whilst there is a lull, whilst they're establishing champions who, in my opinion, are failing to get anywhere near the champions prior to them, AEW could have done something. AEW could have created a red hot storyline. AEW could have changed the format of their television. AEW could have got away from these matches and basically booking a show that appeals to Dave Meltzer. If you continue to book and appeal to Dave Meltzer, you're not going to pull in a casual audience, and you're going to sit on the same rating, and you're going to continue being a company who loses money and gets offered shit TV deals, which is what AEW have been offered. So it's a wasted opportunity. I don't think it's going to be something that changes now, and it doesn't matter who you sign either. Mercedes Moné, Sasha Banks has done absolutely nothing. Signing Ricochet is going to make no difference. Adam Copeland made no difference prior to that. Bryan Danielson made no difference. Jon Moxley made no difference. CM Punk made a difference, but he's no longer there. He works for the WWE, and he will soon be regularly, providing he doesn't get injured again straight away, he will be regularly back on WWE television shortly, building towards SummerSlam. So it has been a missed opportunity. I don't know when AEW are going to do something that makes sense. I don't know when they are going to stop listening to Dave Meltzer and the people that read the Wrestling Observer. There has to be a point where you realize, where both companies realize, I don't just want to make this about AEW, both companies need to realize one very simple thing. The people that read the dirt sheets, the people that are watching this video, the people who subscribe to the Wrestling Observer, the people who listen to podcasts, they will never, ever leave you. When you take a risk, such as this Liv Morgan storyline with Dominic Mysterio, and certain people, these virgin losers with no lives, no social lives, wouldn't even understand the story or relate to it in any way. When they complain about things, they're going to come on the internet and complain, yeah, but they're never going to stop watching. Those numbers, as part of whatever you draw as your rating, 1.5, or in AW's case, 0.7, they are that 0.7. On Raw, they are part of that 1.5. You don't need to do anything to adhere to them. You should only be thinking about growing your audience. Meltzer might not give you the 5 stars that you want for television matches. And by the way, Meltzer gave the Sasha Banks and Willow what's her name? Willow Nightingale. Is that right? Not been watching AEW recently that much. But Willow Nightingale, yes. The match with Mercedes Moné and Willow Nightingale, the same as Undertaker versus CM Punk, Undertaker versus Triple H, and rated it higher than most of the matches at WrestleMania, and almost every match that Kurt Angle had when he was in the WWE. So that kind of really shits on the ratings system. And, you know, for me, Dave Meltzer's legacy in this industry should really have been the fact that he was a fantastic historian and the number one reference point for wrestling, until he tried to shoehorn in his bad opinions and also tried to sell his subscription service by offering people up fake news. At one point he had the real news until people made an effort to stop talking to him. Now it is simply made up news and bad opinions. While still being a great historian, which should be his sole focus, it's the other stuff that has destroyed his credibility. So why would you want to continue booking to appease this discredited journalist or any of the other journalists? I'm talking about John Pollock. I'm talking about Sean Ross Sapp. All of these guys who like this wrestling to be this specific way don't like to watch anything risque, or at least that's what they portray, because everybody tries to be very woke, very PC, as much as they can be, because they feel that this is the audience that we now have, or at least that's the audience that they now have. But the WWE, as far as their television goes, they don't need to give them anything, and neither do AEW. As soon as the companies realize that, and we begin to get television that is designed to attract the casual viewer, that's when we can get television that we enjoy more. At least I'm speaking from my perspective as someone who is a storyline fan as opposed to a long wrestling fan. Yes, I enjoy the physicality and I enjoy a good match, but I don't enjoy it over and over again, and I don't enjoy just seeing shit for no reason. So that kind of feels like what Raw is, and that kind of feels like what Dynamite is, and it feels like WWE have lost a lot of momentum, which has opened up an opportunity for AEW, and it has been an opportunity that they have missed out on. So that's what I wanted to talk about on this episode. I don't know what you would describe the specific subject matter as. I'll need to work that out, because I'm going to need to label the show as something. But this is what I'm going to do here on the show. Hit the subscribe button to make sure you don't miss any of these. As I mentioned, I'll be doing these as and when I feel like it. The live show I'll be doing on Fridays, which will be a more of a Q&A and more of a review of what we've seen that week on television. So I'm going to be starting that the following Friday. So it's not going to be out this Friday. It's going to be the following Friday. This Friday, I'm going to be doing a Clash at the Castle betting preview, which will be on the Lock Betting podcast. And as per usual, every weekend, the Wrestling Informer will be on the Dirty Sheets feed.